This is Jaime Lewis for the 805 Living Eats podcast, a production of 805 Living magazine. For this episode, I headed to The Rock in San Luis Obispo, a brew pub, comfortable hangout, and production center for SLO Brew beer. There, I met SLO Brew's executive chef Thomas Fundaro, a New York native with decades of experience in Central Coast kitchens. Years ago, I had tasted what he calls the nasty Nashville hot chicken thigh sandwich, a spicy chicken thigh covered in sweet, salty sauce, topped with house-made pickles, crunchy kale slaw, and served on a brioche bun slathered with Japanese Kewpie mayonnaise. It was balanced, gorgeous, and addictive, and I've thought about it ever since. For the March edition of 805 Living magazine, I wrote about the Nashville hot chicken trend in the taste food column, and I included recipes for Fundaro's nasty Nashville hot chicken thigh sandwich and 2 other hot chicken-inspired dishes from Central Coast chefs. Here, I sit down with Chef Thomas Fundaro to talk about the origins of his decadent dish, as well as the origins of his career. Enjoy. Tell me about this Nashville hot chicken sandwich that you developed for SLO Brew. Tell me what the inspiration was for that.
Okay, so it started with not wanting to be a run-of-the-mill chicken sandwich. Anybody can do a grilled breast of chicken and put it on a wheat bun with mayonnaise and Brussels sprouts, but
and that will always sell.
Yeah, right. Everybody wants a chicken sandwich, so you really need to be able to provide one. I just wanted to do one that I thought was more interesting. That if somebody was just going to default to chicken sandwich, they were going to have to take some kind of a risk. So we had chicken and waffles on the menu at the time, and we were messing around with what to do with chicken and waffles. We wanted to change it up, and we started talking about doing the Nashville hot chicken because it was always something that I thought was really great. But in the South, I mean, it's literally served hot chicken with 2 pieces of white bread and some pickles, and so it's great, but it doesn't have a whole lot of sex appeal. So as we started talking, and I wanted to put it on brioche because I thought with the crunchy chicken and the spice, the brioche would go well. It's also it's like spongy.
Yeah,
it's spongy, and it can absorb some of that
it's
spicy
sweet.
oil. Right,
yeah.
Exactly. And then I knew I wanted to have something. There's a lot of fat and a lot of heat on it. I also decided that, and the original name for it was Hot Thighs on Sweet Buns. But I got shot down pretty heavily for so many reasons. But then we kind of decided to go with the nasty Nashville hot thighs sandwich. And if you're going to give it a moniker like that, it needs to be hot. It needs to be, and it has to be a little over the top. So we put bacon on it. We had the Newski smoked bacon on it. And then I knew I needed something that was going to cut through bacon, this hot, oily chicken, and, you got the brioche though it's sweet, it's a pretty, butter, egg bread. So
fatty.
I needed something. So we started playing around with, I knew I wanted something lemony, and I knew that we needed to get something leafy on there, and it had to be something hearty enough to handle all of that. So we went with a kale slaw that was done with a soy lemon dressing. So it had a little umami to it.
And it's very California too. I mean, it's true to the style.
I am in San Luis Obispo, so I had to think at least somewhat healthy.
Yeah, right.
while trying to present this. And then, once we got to that point, we kept having it, but it was missing something, and all of us realized it was missing like a dressing of fattiness, and so we started messing around, and we just happened to have, because we're chefs and we like Kewpie mayo, we had a bottle of Kewpie mayo for our own use, and I put it on there, and we tried it, and we were like, that's it.
You had it in the kitchen just for the kitchen peeps.
Just for us. Really just for me and my sous chefs. Not everybody understands that Kewpie mayo has a certain taste and
what
a
is
zing
the taste? I don't know that I would know it if I tasted it.
It almost has it's the opposite of Miracle Whip. Miracle Whip says it has a zing. It really has it tastes like it's sweet. It's
Yes.
more sweet.
Yeah.
I think Kewpie actually has a little bit of a zing to it. It almost tastes like it's acidulated in some way, but in a very subtle way.
Yeah.
So it just has, and it's lifted. It's just a more
little
lifted
vinegar or something like that.
Yeah, although I mean, in my head, it has a citrus thing to it, so it's not just tangy. But anyway, we put that on there, and we thought that was it. We had everything. We threw some pickles on there just because we make our own house pickles, and so we were like, if you're getting it served to you in the South, you're going to get pickles and white bread. So we threw pickles on it, and that continued to kind of give us that cut. So,
yes.
So
There's so much going on there.
Right. And what was funny is that we thought it was like, this is just going to be, because there's so much going on, because you also have to make the frying flour has to be its own animal. So you have to make a chicken fry flour that's specifically for that.
And it has spice in it.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And then the sauce itself is fairly simple. I mean, it's brown sugar and cayenne and a little oil. I mean, it's not overly complicated. It's just the way you do it. And the chicken sandwich comes out of the fryer hot. You dredge it through this bowl of this sauce, and then you start making the sandwich, and it just allows it to kind of, the nooks and crannies of the fried chicken hold on to that sauce. And there was a couple of times the owner was like, this sandwich is hot.
Oh, it's so good though.
It's true. And the sugar makes you go, it's that addictive part of sugar that you take a bite and you're like, this is hot, but I got to take another bite.
It is like that.
It is.
Your brain forgets that you've just had this like flaming hot bite of something, and you do crave it. I mean, I was telling you before, I remember this sandwich from when you served it to me once before. It has stayed in my memory for, a couple years because it was so well balanced, and there is a lot going on in it, but everything has its balancing partner. So the sweetness has the saltiness and the umami, and then the creaminess has the crunch, and it's just a beautiful dish that you downplay as like a pub dish, but really it takes a lot to build it and to execute it. Right, and that was the thing, is that's why we loved it as the downtown signature chicken sandwich. But we kind of had to pivot from there. Mostly because it was scary. Like I said, there's a chicken sandwich clientele who are making that choice not to be daring, but to be healthy. And so that is anything but a healthy sandwich. So, so you Even
have
with the kale on it.
Yeah, exactly. That was my nod to health, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a healthy sandwich. But it is fun, and that was the reason we toyed with keeping them both on, but having been in the business for 30 years, I know that if you have two options and the most popular, for whatever reason, option is going to sell more, and you're going to just be sitting on this other one. So unfortunately, if I ever do like a mini gastropub, there's a place in Paso Robles called Hatch that they're a small little joint. They have great cocktails. They only have like 35, 40 seats. If I ever am in that situation again, that will be my chicken sandwich. That's where I think that kind of sandwich belongs.
Totally.
That clientele will be like, and they're the kind of clientele that they go to that restaurant for cocktails twice a week. So they'll get the hankering for a sandwich like that and go, we're going there because I want that sandwich. Yeah,
for sure. That would belong really well there.
Those higher volume restaurants, it kind of gets lost. And,
So. You mentioned that you've been doing this for 30 years. How'd you get your start?
I was raised in a family. It was a split home, and my dad's side of the family is Italian. So when I was there and with them, food was the glue that held what was going on together. So it was more like it was a catalyst for connection. And anywhere I've ever worked, I've tried to make that the centerpiece of our service and food concept is it can't be about, if it's about what's on the plate, if that's what it's all about, then you've lost the reason then we go to break bread. And I oftentimes, when you're dealing with such beautiful art that is being produced and taken pictures of and sent to each other, that's cool, but I think you missed the point of breaking bread if that's what and the food concept in my family was, let's make really good food and have it available and around so that we can go and do what we're doing. If it's, talking about wine or arguing about football or, watching a movie or going out back and working on the boat, the food was always on the table and the wine was always on the table. And when you crossed through, it was there. And so as I got older, I actually had much different interests and went to college and the whole shot. But to work my way through my early 20s, I cooked. And it wasn't even really a thought. There was an opportunity. I was like, I like food. I can figure out.
I eat.
and I had done it enough. And on my mother's side of the family was, my grandmother was an amazing cook, but she was that awesome country cook, roast turkey, Yankee pot roast, all that kind of Americana food. That was also, it was much more about those were the iconic Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter kind of, baked ham, all kinds of cobblers and pies and that kind of stuff. So I was exposed to that as well. But having both sides of that, and in a separate venue, wasn't together, that it allowed me to kind of see two worlds, or grow up in kind of two worlds of food that when that served me well as I got older, because I could understand that consumer and I could understand that consumer, and I could see you find out, and that's the thing, that what I realized was, I don't know if anybody knows Spencer the Gardener. It was a very popular band. Here, it was a local band back in 30 years ago. And they had a line in a song that said, people just want love and something good to eat. And that has stuck with me, that's really the truth.
Yeah.
If you can do that, where you're just laying some good food out, and then what happens over the food between 2 people, 4 people, 9 people, 20 people is more the point. And I think that's, as I grew into this business, when the opportunity came, I just kept cooking because that's what connected with me. And then when I was done with college, I had done quite a bit of other stuff that wasn't cooking. But when I kind of finished college, I realized that I liked cooking. And I actually went to college in Santa Fe, New Mexico in the early 90s, where that whole Southwestern boom was happening. Yeah. So I kind of got caught up in that, which was completely different from the two worlds that I had known. Right. So I got exposed to chilies and masa and corn and herbs and beans that, I didn't even know there were that many kinds of beans at the time, or the grains and the rices that I got exposed to that, took my career in a different way for a while as well. So I just kind of kept doing it because it kept interesting me. Yeah. And, no matter where you go, it's a different place. Even restaurants that are under the same umbrella, they can be quite different as the way you get stuff done. Yeah. And so that was always interesting to me as well, because you get to learn no matter what. One of my chefs that I worked for, he was like, in this business, you learn things from the dishwasher. And it's true. You think you know something, and then you see somebody who's working for you do something one way, and you're like, why haven't I ever thought to do it like that?
Yeah, right.
And then, that's kind of where I got my start. And then once I realized that this is what I wanted to do, I just let it take me wherever it took me, Denver, San Francisco, New York City. And I just worked until I had a daughter and decided I wanted to be on the Central Coast again to raise my daughter.
Yeah, very cool. And you do happen to work for a place that's big on beer.
Yes.
Brew pub. So what's your favorite beer right now? What are you drinking?
Slow Death is what it's called.
What is that?
It's this new, I think it's a double IPA, but it's a very, very balanced IPA. I think it comes in at like 8%.
Wow.
It's a one and done, but it's smooth, and it's it's opaque, a little opaque in its color. Golden protein head on it where it's the foam sticks.
Velvet,
just really nice beer, and it just got released, I think 3 weeks ago maybe.
Very cool.
And they gave me a can of it just when we were doing that weekend for Australia last weekend.
Yes.
They brought me out one, and I poured it off. I was like, this has got to be one of the best beers I've had.
Are they selling it downstairs?
I believe they are.
Like I could walk out
yes,
with some
I
today.
believe so. I don't hold me to that, but
No.
it was all in can, and I don't know how much of it got shipped off to retail outlets and how much we're keeping.
So with that Nashville hot chicken sandwich, I mean, the thing that I picture is something kind of on the bright side, and to drink with it.
Correct.
Something almost a little like citrusy,
Sure.
kind of floral. So I picture a pretty bright IPA, something like that.
Actually, this one would go great because they actually combine two. I think it's New Zealand. I may be wrong, and I feel
different hops.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the one from either Australia or New Zealand and American.
Yeah.
So they mix them together, and I think that's what gives it. When I was talking to Steve about how much I liked it, he said that the two hops actually gave it that kind of not tropical, but more of a high note.
Yep.
And so it would be perfect. The Slow Death would be perfect.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, well, thanks for talking to me and sharing with our readers how you
My
came
pleasure.
up with it.
You bet.
Thanks so much for listening to the 805 Living Eats podcast. We put episodes out roughly every other month for listeners, and we hope you enjoy hearing from chefs and purveyors across the Central Coast. To find out more about The Rock, Slow Brew Beer, Chef Thomas Fundaro, or his menu, visit slowbrew.com. And be sure to pick up a copy of the March issue of 805 Living magazine for more trends, happenings, and flavor. 805 Living Eats is edited by Chris Lambert. Until next time, I'm Jaime Lewis.